Hi, this is Daniela Wolf with Bestie Life, the podcast, and this is your community to support you through the little and not so little events that make up your day-to-day life. From the I've got this moments to the I just can't moments. We are here to empower all women to find and develop the skills they need to find peace, balance, and the bliss in their busy. Through solo episodes as well as interviews with amazing women who share their journey and their story and how it works for you. I hope you find the inspirations to make you laugh, think, as well as maybe rethink what you thought you knew, and connect as we realize that we are all living similar ups and downs and don't have to do it alone. So excited for you to hear this episode, and thanks so much for joining me today. Hi, this is Daniela with Bestie Life, the podcast, and today I am so excited for you to meet Brenda Reynolds. She is the founder of BKR Consulting and has spent her career as a trusted organizational and leadership consultant, and she helps clients lead with clarity and confidence during times of change. She is a 2-time best-selling author of 2 books. One is TBD-To Be Determined, Leading with Clarity and Confidence in Uncertain Times. And the next is the 5 Frogs Transformational Journal, Reflections on the Road to Resilience. And I know she's going to help give us a couple strategies in each of these areas. So I know that's a brief overview, but thank you so much, Brenda, for joining us today.
I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
So before we get into some of those different strategies and topics, can you tell us a little bit more about your journey and how you came into all of this?
Yes, the way I think 50% of the world comes to some, I call them their now what moments. My now what moment happened in 2008 when the economy was taking a nosedive and my life decided to do the same thing. I found myself unexpectedly divorcing. About to be a single mom with 2 little boys. I had a consulting practice, but I didn't have any guaranteed income or benefits. So I was living in my dream home, but my dreams were blowing up in front of me. And so that was a dark time. It was my now what moment. Mm-hmm. And it was a time that I navigated with really a lot of gratitude that I had a master's degree in organization development. So I knew a lot about resilience and change and navigating it. And I had tools and models that always played out in the back of my head. And I remember thinking how sad it was that everyone didn't have that. Mm-hmm. And so as I was navigating it, 2 things happened. One is I began to think I'm going to write a book for people, and it's turned into 2 books for people to help them get those tools and have those resources. Because my now what moment became a why not, right? It became this opportunity for growth and expansion. And I hope one of my taglines is behind every now what is a why not.
I love that.
Just doesn't feel like it when you're in the middle of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I love that because there's just so much of that growth mindset in there, that optimism of, the what now doesn't have to be the wall. It's the window into your future and your opportunity.
I always say, it's in my TEDx talk, it's on navigating transition, fog. Mm-hmm. And fog is the term that I came up with to talk about that period when you're in a now what, where everything's foggy. You can't really see what's happening. You don't know what's next. You can't see too far down the path. And that stirs up a lot of emotions, anxiety and worry and guilt and shame and you name it. But in that fog, we kind of navigate our way. And ultimately, the fog is an acronym for a freaking opportunity for growth.
I love it.
To your point, Daniela, we don't see the gift of the fog until it's in the rearview mirror and we're on the other side of that moment. Yeah. We just have to trust when we're in it that, oh, geez, something's happening again. It's another freaking opportunity for growth. Here I go.
I know. And it's tough sometimes, I think, to have that mental perspective when you see it coming, when you're in the midst of it. But I think of myself and some other guests I've spoken with, like so many people say afterwards, like, thank God, like I'm so grateful for the mess and how it happened because of all the things that came out of it, the growth, the lessons, the opportunities, and the places they never could have seen themselves had they not gone through that. They would have just stayed with what they already know and that, path that's in front of us. But I think, there's just so many things we don't even realize we don't know. And so life just throws us in it.
And I think it's the last thing we want to hear when we're in the middle of it is someone telling us that, but it's true, whether it's someone who's lost a job, someone who's going through a divorce, I coach people in the workplace and the life space. And once they're through it, they always see the gift of it.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're in the middle of it, it doesn't feel like a gift.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So how do you help someone then when they're in that moment? You see the options and the possibilities, but they're just stuck in that space. And like you said, it can bring on those doubts, that anxiety, that negativity, because we are unfortunately so pre-programmed to think in that way. How do you start to help somebody move?
There are a couple of things. I love this idea of borrowing confidence or lending confidence. Mm-hmm. So when we have a friend who's distraught, sometimes we are in a space where we have to lend them our confidence in them, in their situation, because they don't have it at the time. They just think, woe is me. How is this happening to me? In the same right, when I was going through my situation in 2008, man, I needed to borrow belief, borrow confidence from my trusted family and friends and neighbors, because you don't have it. Mm-hmm. And I think as women, we sometimes are reluctant to be in that vulnerable space or accept help because we are the helpers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the strongest, most important thing we can do is, a couple of things come to mind, Daniela. One is to know that you're going to be borrowing confidence and belief for a while. And the other one is to feel it. Yeah. 5 Frogs came about because it's an acronym for the stages. I'm big on acronyms if you can't tell. It's the stages we go through during a disorienting life event. Mm-hmm. And the F stands for freaking out. It's the stage where something's falling apart. We're freaking out. We're frustrated. We've got a lot of feelings that are surfacing. And so the very first stage of navigating something is to just let yourself feel those feelings. They're not positive. They often are scary. Even when it's a positive change that's happening to us, we still have all of these feelings that come up.
Yeah.
Excitement and anxiety, wanting to scream and wanting to scream with joy and wanting to cry with worry. So they coexist and it's messy, but we got to find ways to get them out, whether it's talking them out. I used to walk and talk with a friend who literally gave me, I think, 2 hours of her day every day when I was in the midst of my falling apart. Mm-hmm. It might be journaling it. It might be screaming into a pillow, throwing pillows. Mm-hmm. Whatever it is. I think giving ourselves permission and knowing that it's okay for us to have those feelings, it does not make us less.
Yeah.
Because if we don't process those feelings, they get stuck. They come back in a really strange, weird way later. Mm-hmm. And so we need to do that.
Yeah. And I think just even recognizing, I've learned that physiologically, there is no difference between anxiety and excitement. And it's the story we tell ourselves a lot of times that kind of dictates how we're feeling about that feeling, that nervous energy, those rumblings in our stomach, the heart palpitations, how we view them is just based on the story. Because like you said, that anxiety and excitement, they walk hand in hand. And so we definitely need to kind of let ourselves know that just because it feels different doesn't mean it's bad.
Right. And sometimes it's a little bit of that energy we need to propel us forward in its own strange way.
Yeah.
And if I tell folks, if you are feeling depressed, you may be kind of overly focused on the past. Mm-hmm. And if you're feeling overly anxious, you might be overly focused on the future that you can't see just yet.
Yeah.
So sometimes those are little tricks for us to check in with ourselves.
Yeah, because I think especially when we start to talk about it in those objective ways and kind of get it out of our head, we're able to respond in such a different way as if we were talking to a friend versus ourselves, just because we're so much more forgiving and kind and allowing for those things.
Amen. That is the thing. I mean, we're mostly having to control ourselves in the situation because we treat ourselves, talk to ourselves, think about ourselves so much worse than we ever would anybody else.
Oh, gosh. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's the F. You're freaking out.
You're freaking out.
All right. The rest of the frog.
Yeah. You're also freaking out because you're realizing you're imperfect and you're raggedy. So we got to get over that. We are. And then in the R stage, a whole bunch of new responsibilities come your way. So in my situation, it was, oh my gosh, now I'm going to be selling a house and moving and single parenting. And I closed my entrepreneurial business and I took a job inside of a client system for a few years. So literally, Daniela, every single thing about my life in that time changed. And so new responsibilities are coming our way. And when they do, the remedy to them is to make sure we're spending enough time reflecting and reframing. So we may need that, I call it a power pause, which is what change throws at us, a chance to pause, to get really super intentional.
Yeah.
And make sure, we're reflecting on what just happened, what was my part in it, what are the facts in front of me right now? How can I reframe this thing that's happening to me in a more positive way? So there are a lot of things we do in that R stage.
Yeah, it sounds like there's a couple of different pieces between reflecting, knowing your responsibilities, how we're responding, all those kind of things. It definitely, I always say when it comes to self-care, that gives you, not always that calm at that moment, but it allows you to respond rather than react. And I think that's, being able to, whether it's take a breath, take a pause, have that moment is so, so key. And that's the part that gets lost a lot of times when we're just living our day-to-day life.
And I think in the R stage too, it's a chance when we take that breath and that intentional break or pause that we're reminded that we always have choice. We may not feel like we have choice, but we have choice. We can decide to get out of a situation. We can decide to stay in it temporarily. We can decide to try to influence or change it. But no matter what, we always have that choice. So I think in the R stage, that is an empowering thing to continue to reflect on.
Yeah. I think sometimes too, we forget we have choices because none of the choices is a magic solution, and I think we don't see that even sometimes what might at the moment seem like two negatives or two undesirable choices doesn't mean you don't have that power to still have a say.
Oh, absolutely. And I think in this stage too, one of the strategies I tried to employ, and they're easy to talk about. They're easy to understand. They're hard to do in the moment. But one of them was just to reframe my mindset about what was happening. And instead of saying, now I have to, instead switch it to, look what I get to do.
Yeah.
I get to start over. I get to work inside of a system and be reminded of what those dynamics are and get myself to be even more trained up and skilled up. I get to be surrounded by a team of people during this very isolating period of time. And, we get more of what we focus on. So that R stage is really important for being mindful of what we focus on.
Yeah. All right. So we've freaked out. We've done all the R's. We now are at O. What does O stand for?
Over time, we overcome obstacles.
I love that.
Big and small. So if we go back to the transition fog, if you think about how we navigate fog on a foggy country road, we do it with our low beams on. Low beams illuminate a 350-foot stretch in front of us. That's it. So I think when we're in the early stages of the obstacles, we simply have to put our low beams on and say, what are the things I need to do immediately, right now? The only things I can do. And I remember there were times when I could only see an hour ahead of me, a half a day ahead of me. Eventually, I could see further out. The good news is to remember that even when we're driving in the fog, we get to our destination 350 feet at a time. That's all we can see. And if we turn our high beams up and we try to get too far in front of ourselves, it can paralyze us because the high beams just obscure our vision even more. And when we're trying to see the end of something we're in the middle of and we can't, it just exacerbates all of those feelings and paralyzes us and creates anxiety. So being okay with small progress.
Yes. Yes. I love talking about that because I think, when I talk about building new habits, new systems, new routines, people think of that big, large end result. Like I'm going to run a marathon, I'm going to lose 20 pounds, not realizing you're not going to go out and run 20 miles that first day. You're going to maybe walk a mile. You're going to maybe jog half, walk half. You have to start small to achieve any goal. And being able, like you said, to slow ourselves down and not get impatient and enjoy the journey and not just the destination, I think really makes a difference in having that control in the outcome.
And Danielle, you talked about habits. I think that habit of writing those things down. I also went through 2 preterm childbirths. And with my second son, I was in the hospital on bed rest and unable to leave the bed for 6 weeks. And I was
Wow.
staring down 6 more. That didn't happen. He came 6 weeks early. But what got me through that time was literally making sure I paid attention
Mm-hmm.
to the obstacles we were overcoming. And they sometimes were small things. I mean, this sounds really crazy, but there were days, when you're just laying in a hospital bed all day, every day, you think, what can I have to be grateful for? What do I track as my progress today? But sometimes it was like I had a bowel movement. It really got
Yeah.
down to that. And then I
Mm-hmm.
started to realize, even from that hospital bed, and that was just great training for me in practice, to say, pay attention to the wins along the way. So to this day, if I get stuck, I
Mm-hmm.
will grab, I have a special journal I keep, and I have it labeled wins. And sometimes at the end of the day, all I write down are all the little hops, all the little wins from
Mm-hmm.
the day. And I don't do it every day, but when I'm in a fog and I feel like I really need to, that's an important practice to remind me that even when I feel stuck, we usually aren't. Something's moving ahead. We just haven't gotten to the end of it yet.
Yeah. And I think some of it comes just from hearing your story a little bit, reminded me of a similar situation when it comes to just being able to slow down and just be okay with being. I about 10 years ago, I had surgery on both my feet. And so I couldn't walk for a period of time. I had to just kind of either lay on the couch or get around in a wheelchair, that type of thing. And people were like, oh my gosh, aren't you going crazy? You can't do this, you can't do that. And I found just a different level of peace of learning to be still. Like, I really physically couldn't go do anything. I couldn't clean the house. I couldn't do all those little distractions that take me away from just being present and taking that time. And what a gift it was, to be able to learn that skill.
When I'm really amped up, I'll even physically start to walk slower,
Mm-hmm.
physically slow down how fast I'm talking during the day, because that intentional slowing down actually affects your physiology too.
Oh yeah.
And it
Yeah.
can shift you out of that insanity you're feeling in the moment.
Yeah, as you're saying that, I'm sure your heart rate's going to go down, your cortisol levels are going to go down, because of that intention piece, especially. It's so powerful. I think we underestimate the power of intention at being able to create these shifts physiologically, mentally, emotionally, in so many ways, just from thinking about something different, even if the action is the same one you've done over and over again.
And if we aren't slowing down and even taking 3 deep breaths, if we aren't able to slow down or pause, we really can't get in touch with what's going on with us.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, one of the key questions I carry in my pocket at all times is to stop when I'm in whatever state, many times during the day, to say, what do I most need and want right now?
Mm-hmm.
And is it, I need a break. I need to get up and use the restroom. I need to go plan a play date with somebody because I need to play,
Mm-hmm.
But I think as women, we don't ask ourselves that question nearly enough. We are so focused, as you use the word
Yeah.
distracted. We are so easily distracted and focused on what everybody else needs,
Yes.
that we don't even ask ourselves that question. And when we do, we sometimes don't even know the answer.
Right. And I love that you talk about a play date, because I think, we see those for our kids, we set it up for other things, not realizing the power of play isn't about your maturity level. It's about your creativity. It's about kind of trying new things. It's about laughter. It's about grace. It involves so many different things, and the benefits you get from play, whether it doesn't have to be, on the jungle gym, or I get motion sickness now, on a swing set, but it could be a walk with a friend. It could be a paint night. It could be, my husband's cousin just took up drumming. She's, retired and on her own. Her kids are all grown. And she's like, I think I want to learn to play the drums, And so even learning to play and do something different is so, so important.
Well, Judith Cameron wrote about this in her book, The Artist's Way. But for me, I realized sometimes it doesn't have to cost anything or be a big deal.
Yeah.
For me, if I just go into a really super cool gift shop, just the colors and the variety and the eye candy. I don't have to buy a thing, but
Mm-hmm.
just going through that store and looking at the items, I mean, it actually recharges my battery.
Yep.
Talking to some of the people in the store, it can be something just as quick and easy as that.
Mm-hmm.
Charge your battery.
Yeah, absolutely. There's so many different ways to play. Even, I think of like on Pinterest, I love to create boards for places I want to go. And so that playing of like planning and exploring even virtually can
Mhm.
still have a lot of benefits as well.
I get tested on this too, Daniela. Last week or several weeks ago, I was talking to a friend of mine and she said, come visit me in South Dakota.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to be here for the summer. She goes every summer, but she said, this may be my last summer here. And I thought to myself, also checking out what the first response we as women give ourselves, which is usually, no, I can't do that.
Right.
So when she asked me, I thought, no, I can't do that. And then I had to challenge myself to say, why can't you do that?
Mm-hmm.
You have the means to get there. You can work from there. It's a place you've never been to. It's a place you might not have on your list of destination spots, but you've got someone who can show you the ropes. It's a completely different culture and environment, and it just may re-inspire me. And I dropped everything. All last week, I was in South Dakota, working hard and playing hard. And I feel like I have come back completely recharged.
That's awesome. I love that. Definitely the spontaneity, I think too, it challenges us to kind of stay on our toes a little bit to do something that, wasn't part of the mapped out plan that we had going for us in advance.
Yeah, it just jarred me. And, I did everything from go to a rodeo, which I've
Ooh.
never been to. And it just kind of piqued my curiosity. There was so much about that I wanted to understand and learn more about, to just taking in the Black Hills, going to Crazy Horse and learning about the indigenous people and the Lakota culture. All of that was so inspiring. So everyone has to get in touch with what that thing is for them.
Mm-hmm.
And be okay saying, I need to do that right now.
Yeah. And it doesn't have to be like a massive overhaul or change. Sometimes even just taking a different way to work or a different way to your favorite coffee shop is enough of a jar, enough of a kind of shift from the norm to make that difference.
Yeah, or just work. I work from my home office, and sometimes I don't work in my home office. I sit in a different room.
Mm-hmm.
Or I find when I'm working remotely, I like having different scenery around me. It just sort of clears the slate for me and lets me focus differently.
Yeah. So as we're working through frog, we freaked out, we're responding. We look at our obstacles. So what's our G?
G, I think I'm growing.
Okay.
Because we do. It's
Mm-hmm.
incremental and it may not show up immediately, but over time we realize how much we've grown. And I like to use, in the journal, I wrote analogies about frogs. And so frogs are obviously born without legs because they're tadpoles.
Mm-hmm.
And it takes about 6 weeks for their legs to start to show up. They have to be patient. Like tadpoles don't go, nah, I don't want to wait 6 weeks. I think I'm good. I'm just going to stay a tadpole. Like they have no choice but to grow. And we don't either. But the key is to be patient with it and know that the growth is going to come. It may feel erratic at first. And in fact, I think what's really true is sometimes during a big growth period, we're literally feeling like we're going backwards for a while.
Yeah.
Taking a few steps backwards in order to propel ourselves forward. And to remember that that's the way growth happens. It's kind of a zigzaggy thing. 2 steps forward, 5 steps back, 2 steps forward in the growth stage. And it's big and small.
Yeah. And I think too, we put so much pressure on ourselves to be good at everything that we prevent ourselves from trying new things just because we're not automatically good at them. And, there's so many times we talk about a yoga practice and meditation practice. And I always emphasize the use of the word practice intentionally because you have to practice it to get better. Nobody starts off good at anything. And we have to allow ourselves that same growth and grace as we get older. And I don't always see that. So yeah, I love that you talk about the growth part of it and the patience.
Even to say during this time I'm going through, what is the old skin I'm shedding? Often we go through big growth moments. Our relationship starts to change. We start to have friends who we fall away from, and we have new people who show up in our life because we've made room for them. So even to say growth is what I'm giving up. When I was living in my marital home, I stayed there for 2 years before we did move. And I realized one day I was holding on to it for all the wrong reasons. And that actually holding on to that home was stunting my growth. It was keeping me stuck in my old life. It was draining me financially. It was requiring too much of my time, energy, and attention. It wasn't a place I could even entertain in because I didn't have time.
Right.
And I thought, what am I doing? I'm still doing, I'm acting as if my life is the same and it isn't. So what do I need to shed? And the day we put it on the market, it sold at the first showing.
Wow.
I think the universe was just saying, get out of there and everything will flow from there. So sometimes the growth is about what am I willing to give up or what do I need to give up for new things to be attracted into my life.
Yeah, I just posted a quote the other day that said something about, when you're creating like September, new kind of, I always see September as like a restart, and so it's not just about what you want to start doing, but what are you going to stop doing, and remembering it's not always about forward. Sometimes it's about letting go of the past.
Well, and I'll tell you too, it's I've made a new author friend who wrote a book called Pivot. So I'm going to plug that right now, Stephen Shapiro, Pivot. And he's an innovator in the business world. And what he talks about is playing basketball and how basketball players will plant one foot and move the other. And whether it's in our personal life or in business, sometimes we get overly focused on the foot that's moving and where we're heading. And we forget about the constants or the things that we need to continue doing because they work for us, as well as the things that no longer work for us. So focusing on that become really super important in our innovation.
Right. So as part of frogs, is the S an intentional letter as well?
S is we end up, as a result of the first 4 stages, we come out stronger. And I like to say we crown our sovereign self. So if you think about the frog who's got the crown on, we equate it to the prince and the princess. And I want to blow up that myth to say, it's not about someone else rescuing you. Going through these stages creates a more sovereign, resilient version of ourselves. And so that's a time to self-abrate. It's a word I made up. It's a chance to make sure we stop to pause and acknowledge everything that's just happened. And then it's usually from that space that we do a couple of other S things. Based on what we've been through or what we've learned, we tend to serve others. From that space, or we tend to share. I mean, I know going through some of the things I did had me inspired to write TBD, had me inspired to write the 5 Frogs Journal. So it's from those experiences now that I want to share. I want to speak about it. I want to use it in my programs. I want to serve from that place to say, I get where you are. And so I think many of us do that later. Right. We share from that experience we've just had.
Yeah, no, I love all the things you just said. Thank you so much for sharing that whole kind of outline with us, and if you were listening on the run, you might want to replay and have a notebook with you, because I think being able to write down these strategies and really being able to see where are your strengths when it comes to the frogs method. What are some of those areas that you didn't even realize needed to be part of the process to help get you unstuck, to help you move forward when it comes to achieving your goals and kind of breaking free of that mold and those things that keep you stuck. I always love to ask my guest, Brenda, I think of gratitude as an underutilized form of self-care. And I know we touched a little bit on it, but what would you say are kind of your 2 to 3 top things you're the most grateful for?
Oh, that I'm most grateful for?
Yeah, that you are.
Ah, boy, I have to think about that. I am most grateful in this moment for having said yes to the trip to South Dakota, the quality time I got with my friend, and the reset that's created for me. It just has me kind of zooming today. I got home just late last night, so I'm still feeling fueled by that. I am grateful for a wide open weekend with no plans in it. Nice. So I can create the plans that work for me this weekend and say to myself, what do I need or want? And I am grateful for some opportunities that are starting to show up that feel exciting in my work world, and the trust and belief that people are putting in me to want to partner on some of these things. So I'm super excited by that.
I love that. Those are all fantastic.
Hey, and Danielle, before we
Mhm.
end the Five Frogs discussion, I would be
Yeah.
remiss if I didn't remind you people that we don't necessarily go through those stages in this nice, neat, linear fashion.
Yeah.
You hop around. So one day you may feel like you're freaking out. The next day you say, oh, look at that obstacle I overcame. And then another day you're self-abrading, and then you go back to freaking out again. So it's really this very frog-like hopping between stages thing.
Holy cow, that all ties together so well because it helps you to remember like you do hop around as a frog. And so it's okay to hop between the stages.
Exactly, exactly.
So, where can people get the journal, get your TBD book, and find ways to work with you?
They can find both books on Amazon, so
Mhm.
that's easy. And they can work with me or check out my website at BrendaKReynolds.com, the letter K,
Mhm.
Reynolds, REYNOLDS.com. I know you'll probably put it in the show notes,
Yeah.
but from there they can figure out how to get me. My email is Brenda@BrendaKReynolds.com. And, whether it's working with organizations, teams, individuals, et cetera, I can do that through the coaching and the consulting, speaking, keynote speaking, the products I have. I would love to be able to work with anyone from your audience.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Brenda. I liked just, like I said, diving into all of that and just learning a little bit more, and definitely can see how I can start applying some of those things. So thank you so much.
Thank you for the opportunity to share this with other people, Daniela. You're doing great work, and I just appreciate being part of it.
Thanks so much again for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please let me know any questions or comments that you have. Also, if you can please leave an Apple 5-star review so that this episode can be shared with more women. There's 2 quotes that I love. Alone we may be strong, but together we are stronger, as well as when women support each other, incredible things happen. So let's be stronger and incredible together, as well as maybe just have some fun along the way. Thanks so much and talk to you soon. Bye.